Good morning, my garden and YouTube friends. For those of you who were here last month and saw this elm tree, which was just nothing but, branches, bare branches, and you could see just a hint of green. You can see in 1 month, we sit on the porch and it is a great camouflage, and the sun, which is right to my back and coming over the house that's over here, just, you know, glares in our eyes, and we feel like we're, under the hot lights. Well, with this tree, it just cuts it off. And the marigolds were still such tiny little plants that you could see all of the red crimson clover. You could see the Dusty Miller, and the pentas were all coming up, and they were really pretty. Well, the marigolds have taken over. By the way, these are an African marigold, and they were just came from one head that was in a neighbor's yard, and I asked if I could have it, and they said, oh yeah, sure, everything's getting thrown away. So I took it and planted them last year, and last year I got some really nice small blooms, kind of in, like maybe this size was the biggest. And this year, planting them here, the blooms that I'm getting, the heads are much larger. I'm getting a few yellows, mainly all yellow, but a few of the orange. And I'm going to kind of eyeball who I want to save this year. I'll show you the one that I have marked in my head. Look at this. Isn't this incredible? I've measured it with my hand, and it's probably about 3.5 inches across. So that's, hopefully no one will come along and pick it, but that's the one I'm going to save for my seed base next year. And but anyway, that turned out really well, and I'm real pleased with how pretty it looks. And people come down the street, they come the whole way down the street, and they can see the swale. And I call this the swale garden, of course. It's so swaled. And then last month you saw that I planted this little, I'm trying to hide, this is a electrical box, and it's for telephones. Well, nobody has a telephone anymore, not a landline. So anyway, I thought I would go ahead and plant stuff around it to try and hide it. And I have more marigolds, and then I have some coleus that I've just really dug up. That kind of becomes almost a weed in my yard. And then the little guys here are nasturtiums. And this variety of nasturtium is one that only grows to be about a foot tall and has orange and yellow blooms. There's a couple little penta starts, but we'll see what takes off. And then you guys have all seen my crepe myrtle that we cut back about 6 weeks ago. And so that's coming back really strong and should be blooming in the next few weeks. And the azaleas are still sending out a few blooms, but I need to go and clip those back if I want to maintain that height. And I planted some Japanese giant red mustard underneath here, with just the idea that you could come out here and snip some leaves and make your salad, because this is the greens that I've told you about that has kind of a flavor like wasabi. And it's just really great in salad. Or if you're having something plain, like say you're having a fish, and then you take some of those leaves and wash them, and just as you're finishing with your fish, say in your skillet, and you flip it over, poach it in something like an orange and lemon juice, and take some of those leaves and just lay it on top of the fish and put a skillet on and let them wilt down. It's just marvelous. Anyway, back to the tour. Of course, our fountain keeps us happy and sound. And the blue days is just starting to bloom. It looks ever so nice in the sunlight. It starts to send out those little tiny blue flowers. Where have I got any? You can see they kind of close up at night, and then in the daytime, then they open up, and they're so pretty. I took a bunch of volunteer coleus and planted them here behind Gwendolyn so that they would kind of give her a backing once they start to grow up. You can see, look at the coleus. Look at how it drops its seeds. It's a volunteer for sure, and it just comes up all along. And so you kind of have to pick and choose, decide where you really want it. Now, we had a heavy rainstorm a couple days ago, and I wanted to bring you over and show you one other thing that I did. When it comes down, we have a gutter on our house, and there's a downspout back there. And when it comes down with a force like a fire hose, and it will just wash out this whole area. And so what I did is I actually took my digger and I brought everything up to the stones so that this level is probably about 3-4 inches higher than this is. So when it did come down, it really tucked and kind of stayed in most of it the whole way around. It came down here, and then it cut across, and when it did, it cut across here, the sidewalk, and then it actually went in and started to water everything on this side. So that was actually a good thing. I was thinking that I should do the same thing down here and build almost like a moat around, so that when it does rain heavily, in Florida we get heavy afternoon showers. You know, the humidity builds up into the cloud cover, and then we get a shower. Anyway, let's see, what else do I have blooming? I planted these guys just, well, let's see what our little identity stick says. It says April 2nd. Yes, marigolds, April 2nd. This is a French marigold, and it's another variety. There's many varieties of marigolds, but this is one that stays small. It will, a French dwarf, and it'll stay under a foot, and it has those really cute little blooms on it. They're tiny, and you see them in yellow and orange and kind of a burnt orange and a multicolor, but the petals kind of go around in a circle versus the African type that I just showed you that look more like a pom-pom. And so they look really pretty in these little pots, but I'm almost thinking that I might take them up and use them as a border somewhere because they will stay contained. Behind that, I have radishes, and the radishes are really the greens are just excellent. You can use them in stir fry, you can use them in a salad, and they are really, really good. I did try radishes, the actual radish, and I wasn't too fond of it, so I gave it to my neighbor who lives over there, and she's vegetarian. She thought they were marvelous. But you can see my caladiums. I planted 400 bulbs a few years ago, and they will come back. They'll start to resurface. They have been for almost a month now, and this one is called Dragonheart, and they will just appear, and I like planting them that way so that they're spontaneous in my garden, and they just are a little bit everywhere. Back behind these, I have trays of lettuce. This is the red and green, roughly, leaf lettuce. And over on this side, I didn't have such great luck. This was called the Little Gem, and I had really sparse germination. So I'm either going to reseed it or I'm going to pick something else. I donate to the Boys Town, and every year they send me seeds. So what can I do? I have to plant them. This is actually my second year. I think I did it a few years back, and they really didn't come up very well. But this is a Shasta Daisy, which looks like it's germinated really, really well. I think that's very sweet looking. And then over here I have Forget-Me-Nots, which did okay. Back behind that I have 2 pots of the giant Japanese, which is where I started, was planting them in pots. And I thought, these grow so well, I'll bet I could grow these in the landscape and they would be just as hardy. I did a tray also behind it, and may I say they're delicious plain. If you just want to come out in the garden and grab a bite, they have just a nice little bite right at the end of your swallow. Over here I have Bibb lettuce, and somehow a tomato seed got in amongst the Bibb lettuce, so I can't tell what these plants are doing at night. And I have nasturtiums in a pot behind there, and then a couple more tomato plants, and these were sent out from Baker's Creek. They sent it to me as a free seed, so I felt like, if you send me free seeds, I felt compelled to plant them and see how they are. And this is a yellow tomato. I've never eaten a yellow tomato. I just had a neighbor come by, and she is from South Korea, and she told me that yellow tomatoes, for people who have trouble with acidity, the yellow tomatoes are a milder tomato. And I think you can see I'm already getting some little blossoms. Come on, baby. Yeah, can you see that little blossom? So we'll see. I mean, they're I don't know, a month old, 5 weeks old. My gardenia here is blooming like great guns. This plant, I wish you had smell-o-vision, because they are just perfect. And so far, believe it or not, so far I have taken 90 blossoms off this one small bush that is probably, comes up to about my hip and is maybe 2.5 feet wide. And, how can you beat that? But it's certainly keeping me happy. And I think you've probably been through the rest. The amaryllis, that's the last one blooming. I had them everywhere here in my garden, both in pots and in the ground. I have them. And you saw my process, I believe, of taking care of them. By the way, people always ask, how do you keep your bird baths so clean? I'm here in Florida and the humidity and all. Well, every morning when I come back from my walk, that's my thing to do, is to get a bucket and just kind of refresh the water, and I think that's all you have to do. Let's see, here's the bougainvillea, still blooming, and it will bloom. I can get this to bloom all year long. All year long. 2 of them, just beautiful. Tell you the story again. They were little 18-inch sticks when I first bought them at Lowe's. And do I still even have the... Oh, I think my wood has finally... There's a little section, you can see a little piece of wood that's still left, and kind of gobbled up by the branch. And all those will come off because they're sapping strength from the actual vine. And bougainvillea grow more like a vine. You can train them up like this if you wrap them around a piece of wood. If you let them flare out in the very beginning, well, you're kind of doomed, because then you've got a bush. If you train them up like this, take everything off the bottom and just leave a couple main stems, then they will eventually grow into that. But this is a good 10 years of training. So beautiful, but they do take some work. I wanted to show you the amaryllis. For those of you who saw me take them in the very beginning, the ones that I called the teenagers were the back group, and then I had the little kindergartners, and these were the ones that were just tiny, tiny, tiny. But you can see if you just give them care and water, they're in this pot. These bulbs have probably close to doubled in size in the 3 months that they've been in pots. Well, maybe not this guy or gal, but some of them have put on size. And I'm going to probably leave them in this pot because they're safe and they're contained, and I can keep them watered. And if I do fertilizer for everybody else, well, then they'll get a little time release fertilizer. And if I don't, they get rainwater, and they get a, when I clean out my worm bends and I harvest the castings, I take those castings and take a scoop of them and put them in some rainwater, and then I water everybody. Everybody gets a dose of it. So this kind of like it's like a mild holy water, versus a heavy fertilizer. And so I think that's probably about it. I don't want to hold you too long. I've got more of the yellow tomatoes that I need to find a spot for. I did plant another lettuce, and it was called a Little Gem, and I'm not as pleased with the results of it. So I think I might take those out and either start again in maybe another soil, or I might try to direct seed the lettuce. And then my other little spot over here, this is called a peppermint balsam, and it grows about a foot tall. It has really pretty little red and white blossoms on it, hence the name peppermint. And the balsam and the leaves are edible. So this year I'm trying to get into more permaculture and growing a food forest, and more amaryllis that are here with a little bit of milkweed for the butterflies. And so anyway, permaculture, if you can get your little food forest growing, and if you have any concerns about the world and not having enough food, I think I will probably always have enough food in one fashion or another. But there are many people who are concerned about it. And I like the idea of permaculture. I like the idea of growing my soil and recycling and saving my little patch of the world as much as I can. If I can help in any way, I will. And so thanks for visiting. I appreciate you guys coming by. I wanted to get this done before the end of the month. So hopefully you will have a great spring. You'll get out, you'll garden, and you'll garden what you've got. You don't always have to go out and buy things. You can take what you have and make it work for you. So anyway, until I see you again, it's been a pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.